morning from New York. I'm Mitch Sotelo, and it's my nickname, Mitch. Full name David Mitchell Sotelo, okay? But call me Mitch. Today's discussion is entitled Argument, Empathy, Mirroring, and Peace. It was inspired by a story on the public broadcasting station aired here in New York at 6:30 about in the morning, and it started about a lady who noticed that that she's a researcher, and I don't know her name. Sorry, I couldn't remember it, and I had trouble finding it, and I'm running out of time to space to do this video, so look it up. Great station. And she was a researcher into how we communicate and persuade, and how we avoid difficult arguments. And she noticed that ballroom dancers who were in great sync while dancing had bitter arguments, about the dance afterwards. I assume it was about the dance. And she said, well, they were surrounded by mirrors, and each one was seeing what was at the back of the other, so their perspectives were different. And that was a light bulb for her, and so she said, hey, let's consider when we're discussing with people that their perspective is different. You think? And there was a fellow who was brilliant, who came up with emails to send to Russia and get past its spam filters, and trying to get them to understand that the war in Ukraine was unnecessary. And the lady who I just mentioned found out about it. See, this is what I remember. Will your name be remembered? No, maybe what you do or what you say might be. Anyway, you can give her proper praise when you look it all up. But she said, well, she spoke Russian, and she said, well, that's a great idea, but this needs to be rewritten. And then she rewrote it again with the help of her mother, who was a great writer. So you see all this in sync kind of effort going on. And there was another fellow that wanted to avoid estrangement in families, in his family therapy practice, between people because of differences of opinion, especially in politics. And he was asked to try and get some Trump supporters and Hillary supporters to have a conversation that was more productive and less, hateful. Some of the advices, of course, were very practical. Don't say always and forever, and say same things like maybe. Be a little humble. So my thought about it is, how does this relate to inner mind communication, the communication within your imagination, or how you imagine the world? Well, how you imagine the world is your perspective. Trying to change that within yourself and your own communication within yourself is the attempt to see things from different perspectives. And of course, if you bring that into the real world, day-to-day life, you would, of course, try to get the perspective of the other person. So there's a link there. I said, very interesting. Empathy itself means, trying to feel and understand what the other person is feeling, and to get out of your own perspective somewhat, and focusing that within yourself, of course, is a recognition, and with inner mind communication theory, that you yourself have many different perspectives, and consider those, and consider your perspective in various communications within your mind. And that involved the use of three forms of empathy: creative, seeing things from many different perspectives, and creating memory. All of these practices in inner mind communication, that the form that I talk about, are related to your needs and your feelings. I've mentioned that it's about the flow of love. So seeing another person's perspectives, it makes you a little bit more able to love them. You see their needs, and see what they're feeling. And that's one lady that I just mentioned, her mother helped her with her improved writing, in a way that was more empathetic with the viewpoint of the culture of the Russian people, she being Russian herself. So then the other perspectives, of course, objective, trying to question what it is that you believe. Try to be objective. That's the way that you can have objective empathy. You don't just throw things out there. Analyze and argue against your own perspective. In the past, I had tried to get groups together, and both Republican and Democratic, and and one of the rules would be that if you have an argument, you try to take the other person's point of view and argue from that point of view, so that your debate is more about finding the truth than it is about pushing an idea on someone else. So that was a thing that I actually found resistance to. So that was one of my failed experiments, pretty much. I thought it was just common sense. So one of the things that I've noticed is that there's also, okay, let's go over those three forms of empathy. I ramble a lot, I'm sorry. not a professional speaker, um, obviously. Um, the objective empathy, of course, I just mentioned that, and I mentioned the creative empathy, the compassionate empathy, you know, helping someone else, be a good listener, you know, be open to someone's feelings, let them express their feelings. So feelings are based on needs, and the meeting of needs, that's love. That's the flow of love. And if you're not caring about a person's perspective and their feelings, then the flow of love is obstructed. So you want to keep that flow of love going. And now, at the same time, um, we have to recognize that some people are not going to respond to these things. And that mental health is also important. Emotional intelligence is important in this situation. There has to be a certain degree of that for the other approaches to work. And inner mind communication can help to improve the health of your ability to empathize. So that's what that's about. I call it a mystic approach because it's the communication between your dramatic self, your feeling self, and your creative, artful self is one that invokes awe, and your creative, artful self is the part of you that's more connected to a greater, higher truth. You know, a better communion with the absolute reality, which we all strive to achieve, and we may never achieve. But the effort is worth it. Science is basically born of that, and you know, we have a lot of theories that there's probably no theory that covers everything, but the theories are as good as they predict what happened before and what's going to happen next, and those are the limitations of our human thinking and theory. Absolute limitations, I won't say that, but pretty hard to move beyond that. But anyway, that's absolute truth, and the anthropomorphizing of that, or the seeing it as a relatable human being, you know, that's the behind the God perspective of the absolute truth, that there's a consciousness, and that's not entirely an untenable position to take. It's certainly easier to relate to as a human being, and it has its pluses, and I suppose its minuses. But so the creative part of you is, well, it's your higher self. That's how the whole thing relates to yoga, which is a kind of mystic practice, that it also involves physical exercise. And well, a whole lot of different exercises. But yeah, the core of yoga, of course, is to connect to that part of you that is, I call the artist. The part of you that is, well, in Christian terms, that of God in you, or and so on. image of God in you? What is the supreme person? That's a good question. Well, that kind of person would certainly be very virtuous and empathetic, and have all of these empathetic skills, at the very least. And what powers that it might have, I don't venture to say. A lot of people have different opinions on that. Can you have a communication with that? Well, yoga says yes, and mystics say yes, and I say yes. You can have a communication with I call it my muse, my artist, that part of yourself. Now, that also helps in communication, because you have a communication like that, you realize that your day-to-day dramatic self is not perfect. And okay, and it also, inner mind communication helps with emotional and mental health, and the learning of empathy. So, and ego transcendence. That's, as I said before, is related to the infant mind in you, the pre-language part of you. Part of you that isn't entirely about language. It's maybe 3 years of age and back. Not so much language involved there. Very simple. So it's it's a gradation of evolution of how you grew, and so it's hard cutoff lines are not something that work very well in the things that I'm talking about. There's a lot of gray areas and overlap and so on, but there's still patterns to see. And it's easy to see that without language you don't have an ego concept. You don't have a self concept. And the self concept can be very limiting. This is who I am, this is who I have to be. No. That's how you imagine yourself at this moment to be. And even that is flawed by the fact that depending on your situation and the perspective that you have with that, you're a different person. So, in many ways, you're not just a single individual. That part of you is something that you attach yourself to, and it helps you in communication. It's a very effective way to communicate and to see who broke the dishes and why and how, and how we should respond to that in society. The punishment is out the roof nowadays. It's punishing attitude is an enemy of empathy, and you can protect yourself and society without punishing intent or creating negative experiences for people that do a wrong thing. You could call that ignorant left-wing bull. And but the perspective that would say that is talking, I believe, from the concept that some people can't change, and that there has to be a disincentive. Well, the disincentive doesn't have to be cruel to the level that I would call punishment, but some might call it punishment. Again, gray area. You put somebody in prison, it's a punishment, but it's also necessary to protect society. It's a disincentive against doing a bad thing. Yeah, it's all good, but we should all consider that healing people that have a problem and understanding them is more valuable than beating them over the head. You know, I don't think that punishment changes people fundamentally, so there's that. They may be scared to do the bad thing, but that's not healthy. You know, you should not do the bad thing because you feel what it does to other people and to yourself. So all of this things that I've mentioned from NPR and whatever is all about feeling at its core, and empathy, and transcendent viewpoints, which allow for great humility. Humility and transcendent views are very much tied together. When you say transcendent of what? How you usually see things. And science is always looking for new ways to see things that transcend, the earlier points of view, perhaps, that better predict things. And evidence, of course, is that we see the prediction working. So, I mentioned peace. Well, peace in the world is not going to be attained unless we do all of these things, all the beautiful things that the lady mentioned and the family therapist mentioned, and so on. All of those things, but also more. Taking that kind of wonderful thoughtfulness that they mentioned into your own mind, into your own imagining of the world. And as they so rightly pointed out, different people have different imaginings. Yeah, and you can respect that and respect the person and still disagree with their decisions. That doesn't mean that you stop caring about them. One thing was that was mentioned by the family therapist was the isolation of people, not inviting people to dinner in your family that disagreed with you. But he threw in some rules. So you can't be obnoxious. Yeah. Well, that's kind of all about mental health and then sort of emotional intelligence and mental health that are involved with that. And that's a disincentive. You're welcome to dinner, but don't push it. Don't push your ideas. Be open to a more fluid, caring communication. So, What they didn't mention, I think, is that kind of communication they're talking about is more caring. It's more loving. It's more embracing. It's more tolerant. Now, they knew all that, but they didn't happen to mention it in the discussion that I heard. But I want to point it out. Let's see. I've kind of had a run here. I'm starting to run out of things to say for a lot of reasons. Other messages are coming. It's like other things to do today. Yeah. I don't know. What else can we throw in before we tie this up? Yeah. Oh, yeah. But that's the next video, I hope, will be, and I won't promise this for sure, but talking about more in depth about social organizations and institutions, especially institutions like church, state, business, and the media. I've talked about these things and how they overlap with the things that I've mentioned. Yeah, maybe later. I would like to give a shout out to the great efforts in Linux desktop, which I'm using now. This is Big Linux. Big shout out to Big Linux. Wonderful distribution called a distro. It's Linux distributions for the desktop are open source. They are donation based, according to your ability to pay, so it's free if you don't want to pay, but if you don't pay, then, advertise, the system and the people who work hard to create a distribution. So, donation based, so in that sense it's free. But the real point of Linux is the freedom to see all the code and change it and improve it, which is a great advance in communication, isn't it? You'd think that would be the way of the future. Much better communication of ideas. I have some favorite Linux instructors, presenters that I'll mention at another time. These videos are not supported by any donations or anything like that. So, for now, anyway. But I will throw out for free, some praise now and then for products and services that I think are wonderful. And I hope this channel expands to more people than me. Wow. Dream on, right? Yeah, it could happen. There's some great minds out there. And the system that I call a version of inner mind communication, I would really like to get those minds working on this and testing it and seeing its value and its needed guardrails. But not to say it's not safe, it's generally as safe as anything out there involved with mindfulness meditation or intercommunication, which there are all kinds of things like this. And they're fairly safe. Like exercise, but remember, not every exercise is good for everybody. And some, can be harmful to some people. So if we're engaging in anything like the type of, can we call it yoga? Kind of yoga, it is sort of that way. It's good to, have a go-ahead from a well-qualified psychologist or psychiatrist that that's a good, okay thing for you to do. Or maybe parts of it you can do, and not others. So that's what I'm throwing out there, but I want you to see the vision. I want you to see the love flow revolution. Because if we don't get a lot better at our capacity for empathy and effective communications, we may not be around after a while. We will not be able to deal with terrible exponential developments, tragic developments that we have brought on ourselves. Yeah. Well, that was a mouthful, and I was straining at the edge of my vocabulary. Did you see that? Anyway, blessings to all of you. May you find the peace and the guidance and the love that you need in your life, and may you share it with others. And a statement that I love from India is the word namaste, which means all the wonder of the universe and the best of all things that's in me salutes the same in you. And there is some part of that in us, isn't there? And we are certainly a part of it. Namaste. And goodbye, y'all.